he's like an ideal customer. He's got like massive code base, big teams, multiple like teams, marketing, sales, everything. He's like the ideal customer. I'm just trying to lock him down. He's in Canada, so I'm just trying to find a way in to really get to speak to him. But we're emailing quite a bit, which is quite nice. So I don't want to be too pushy, but yeah, let's see what happens.
And what are your emails like? Like, what are you asking?
Well, I started last week with, to be honest, pretty probably terrible emails now that I look back, but they were kind of more around like, "Hey, I'm a young founder. I've just launched this product. It was very helpful in my company. I'm looking to basically show other people to see if it could actually be useful outside of just my business." And that was getting basically no replies. So literally this morning, I started writing another email, which I called like punchy, which is essentially just saying like, your teams need this, watch this 2-minute demo, and then I've included a Loom video. So just basically not trying to explain too much, but just basically try to hook them in to get us to watch the video, because if they watch the video, it basically shows how they can do that knowledge transfer. So I'm basically just trying to do like almost like a 2-line email. But let's see how that goes. I haven't sent them out yet. I've been crafting
Well,
it today, so yeah.
let me recommend going like leaning into the humble thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, I'm a young founder. I created this product to
Cool,
solve
yeah.
this pain point. Focus on the pain, not the problem. And then ask for feedback so you can learn, not to sell or show them or convert them. Be like, hey, do you mind if I show you this product and just get your feedback on it? That's all I need right now, because I really need to learn what people like yourself, like the pains they're facing. So do you mind if I jump on a demo call and show it to you and just get your feedback on the situation? Because you want to learn in the beginning. Like, a lot of people assume cold sales is like something you start with, and that's not what you start. You start with feedback, because what you want to learn is your selling points, and you don't know your selling points. Your customers are going to tell you what the
Mm-hmm.
selling points are. So I looked into this. The research shows that this kind of qualitative feedback, you need like 9 to 17 demo calls or pieces of qualitative feedback from different people to get saturation in intelligence. So I'm just saying 9.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
to
yeah.
go to the higher bound. So just try to get on 9 calls, demo calls like this, on every version, like every like
Yeah, yeah.
potential version. It'll give you a ton of insights.
For sure. And I mean, even with the few that I've spoken to, that I've got a lot of insights from. So it's been, yeah, it's really interesting. And that's really what I'm learning with this kind of indie world is like Twitter is great, but you meet a lot of like-minded people who are also building tools, and you kind of have a lot of common in like yourself. But really the real customer for me isn't probably sat on Twitter. They are actually doing something elsewhere, and I have to go find them, which is definitely an
For sure,
interesting kind
for
of
marketing, but
transition.
in terms of feedback, lean into the kindness of this Twitter world.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah,
will
yeah,
jump on a phone call and see the thing
yeah,
and
yeah,
give you feedback if they have the right knowledge that kind of aligns with your target customer. Feedback is feedback, because like most of the feedback is going to be like UI stuff, is going to be ease
yeah,
of use stuff, is going to be intuition, is going to be all of that. So if you're finding a hard time getting on calls with prospects that are like in your target customer base, don't be afraid to hit up the homies, basically.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think I do that quite well, actually. I think I already speak to quite a few people on Twitter and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and get their kind of, yeah, feedback. And obviously, like yourself, you gave me great feedback on the like landing page,
Mhm.
how I can improve the messaging, like those kinds of things are great. And now I think I'm, yeah, just at that stage where I just basically need to get it in the hands of people to use it, to really kind of refine it and see how it can
Yeah, and
basically go to the
show it,
next level.
exactly.
Yeah,
Show it.
exactly.
Show it to prospects. Have customers show you how they use it. Those are like the two
Yes.
pillars. Reach out to the people that are already using it. Thank you so much. Love to see you
Yeah,
use it
exactly.
and make it better for you. Let's get on a call. Like, that is the main activity that you should be doing until you get those 9 and you start hearing
Exactly.
repeated things. That's like where the 9 comes in. Because at 7, you're gonna be like, I heard this before, I heard this before, I heard this before.
Hmm.
And you're gonna know what to do to kind of kill all the negative feedback, so now
Yeah.
you can focus on building on top, right?
growth.
So
Yeah, for sure.
enough preaching. I want to see this.
All right. Do you see this? I guess.
I see.
All right. So okay, let's just start from the top. So yeah, we're both building products, and one day I want to work on something. So the way that I would do that myself is I would like to go to AI and I would like to discuss whatever problem I'm trying to solve. But the thing is, what's really frustrating is I always have to explain my product. Obviously, you kind of have a bit of a knowledge base in Claude and ChatGPT. But anyway, it's never really perfect. I always find myself having to repeat myself. So really, that's kind of where this comes in. But let's say I want to describe something to someone in my company, or I want them to be able to ask anything about a code base. So, for example, new hires is a great opportunity. I could just come to my Chrome extension and I can just download the repo. And what this is doing is it's basically compressing my code base. It's giving a context file, folder structure, which is just your architecture, and it's removing any sensitive files. So if I open this up now,
Quick
yeah,
question. If you don't
go
mind me
for it.
interrupting.
Yeah, of course, no, not at all.
That was a little too fast for me.
Yeah.
What
The
is the Chrome
download.
extension? Can you take me from scratch up until the Chrome extension? Like what happens from 0 to Chrome extension connected to the repo?
So basically, the repo is just connected through GitHub. So if I come in here for a second, if I actually
Yeah.
just log out, I can just log
So
in.
on
I'm
your
already
website, yeah,
authenticated.
like
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing this because you want to set it up so that there's no what the fuck just happened, right?
What happens? Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So go from your landing page. All right, I'm on your landing page. If I hit make my code base ready for AI, it takes me to the Chrome
Yeah. So
extension.
no, if I was going to log in, for example,
Uh-huh.
I could come in here. I just send myself a magic link. I'll just wait for that to come through. This will come in here in a second. And now I can log in. So the Chrome extension and the CLI command, which I can show you in a minute, are basically just more intuitive ways to do the same thing.
Okay, so
So I can come
this
into
is
the
what
product.
happens when you sign up.
Yeah, I come into the product. I'm in Code2AI, you could say.
Mhm.
And now what I can do is I can manually drag and drop a zip file of an entire code base and it will compress it. But that's quite manual and it took about 3 or 4 minutes every time I wanted to do it, which is okay, but it's not that sustainable. So I made a CLI command, which basically means I can compress it directly from my from Cursor, VS Code, doesn't matter. Or I have a Chrome extension, which is connected to GitHub. It can be private or public repos, it doesn't matter.
That's great, but this is
But
easier. I like this.
yeah,
So
this bit
so
here, and
so I have my code folder on my desktop. If I just take that and zip it and drop it in
you could
here.
put it in here. Yeah, it would just basically compress it. I can show you how that works as
Yeah, show
well.
me, please.
So if I'm in Cursor, let me just pull this up. Here we are. So if we are just in here,
Even from the
and
Finder, not the CLI command, just
yeah,
the Finder.
yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, I would just reveal in Finder. I'm just going to come here for a second,
Mhm.
and I'm going to build, and I can just this is it. This is the file I've done. So I can just compress this very simply,
Okay.
and it's just taking a second.
So I don't even have
And
to
then
do the whole repo. I can just take basically my roots and my components and not the package log, JSON, all this other crap.
well, so we already get rid of all that stuff. So we remove any sensitive data and anything like that. I think my internet's been a bit slow. It doesn't usually take this long.
That's fine. I'll cut it
But
in the video.
yeah. Basically, you upload your code base, and it's doing the same thing as it does if you download it from Chrome. Or to be honest, the version I use the most is directly from inside Cursor. I can show you that as well whilst this is loading.
Yeah.
So in
Sure.
Cursor, I'm in my terminal, and I could just
Mhm.
type in Code2AI. And it's
Mhm.
just doing the same thing. It's just basically manually zipping. It's basically zipping up the entire thing, compressing it, and it's only giving me the files back. And I'll show you what files it gives back in a second.
Yeah.
But if we'll just wait for both of those to happen. I don't know why it's taking so long. It usually happens in
Yeah, it's fine. So
much
the
faster.
output, you do this and it outputs, you said like 3 or 4 files that are ready to
Well, it gives a lot more
digest.
than that, but there's a reason for it. But there is only two files which are important, which is really why you use this tool. There's only two files that you really want to have. So actually, that just did it there. I don't know if you heard the sound. So anyway, here it is. I can click it here, and it's I've got a compression file in my thing here, and I can actually just see. And what it's done is it's given me a context file, it's given me a folder structure file, and it's also given me the key files, like code files, but it's not given everything. There's no environment variables, there's no like packages, nothing like that. It's just basically pulled it down, given me the most important things. And it's these two files is which are really important. So in here, you have an overview, you have a project summary, you have basically the context, how to use it, key configurations, stuff like that. The folder structure is just the architecture, so AI can really understand the whole project without having to understand everything. So also this one has now finished. So it's exactly the same. So if you, if you came here, it's exactly the same as the context file. So it doesn't really matter. So now I've downloaded it. There's three ways to do it. I've showed basically all three now. And what I do is I would then come into here. So I would come into Claude one day and I would just copy these two files. I'll paste them in. And let's say I wanted to describe to you how my authentication flow works. So can you describe how my authentication flow works? So no context, just literally that and the two files. And basically it tells you exactly how it works. It understands basically with 20% of the context, it can understand 80% of your project. That's kind of the theory of behind this. And this is great. Now I can basically
to describe the features. Just like, hey, what are the features of this?
What did you say? Describe
the
features.
Can you describe the features of this app?
Yeah. So basically it tells you everything here.
Okay. Project processing
so we'll just go through it.
Function,
yeah.
Web application. Hell yeah.
So it does this basically off these two files. But the thing is, what happens is sometimes you'll find yourself that you want to work on something maybe in a bit more granular context. So let's say something I found quite a lot happening was I'm working on the landing page, as you know, when I was doing it with you as well. So it actually also just dragged that txt file. So it's a little bit smaller than the original, just a bit compressed. I can actually add that in here as context as well. So sometimes the AI might ask, oh, can you upload a file, or can you, because it's got the folder structure, it understands your entire code base, but sometimes you need to give it a bit more just to get, let's say, very accurate thing. Let's say I was writing documentation about my magic link flow or my email flow, it doesn't really matter. I might add some more context. And that is the reason I give more files here, not just the two, basically, because then it allows you to just quickly add more files as you need. But the goal in the future would be to somehow like dynamically pull the right files at the right time. But again, that's a future thought of mine, which we can get into later.
Or maybe you can just have it, you know, like as an interim step is I don't tell
you could easily upload all of these into. So one of the ways someone uses it, which I find really interesting, is if we do a let's do this. What they do as a company is they would, for example, actually drop these two files in, but they might actually drop in a few more. There might be maybe like target audience, there might be a brand persona, things like that. And in here, then what they can actually do is they can start to invite people into this project, and everybody can just ask questions. So for example, someone from marketing could come in here and ask, write me a blog post around my authentication flow. And then a developer might say, can you explain how users sign up to the platform or stuff like this? And they can just do it all from these two original files. Like it's basically enabling everybody in a team to get context of your product literally just in these two quick files. But something I found which was really useful. So actually the other day I was reading a blog, and I'll show you it quickly. So this guy called Lawrence, he's wrote an insanely interesting blog around optimizing LLM prompts. Basically, how can you define, like you can see it here, what they're doing is they're somehow like scraping their prompt, the initial thing, and then they're reducing the actual amount of tokens it needs by giving it a key. So this is really complicated, and it's very smart actually if you actually read the entire thing. But something I found quite useful is I could just copy this entire article. It's now got the context of my product. So based on this article, and my product, how could I implement something similar to my compression? And based on this, plus the original context, it can now actually just start to work out how my product could implement some of these things. I've not had to explain my product. I haven't had to write anything. I've literally just copy and pasted 3 things. And literally it's telling me exactly where it should go, how I could do it. You know, it's not just giving me guesses. It's not giving me questions. It's actually saying, this is exactly where you would do something like this. So I find this really useful to kind of think through ideas, or yeah, if I'm writing emails, I can even upload this as context, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting use case I've found for it so far.
Because yeah, this is amazing. I have so many questions.
Yeah,
Uh,
go for it. Yeah, shoot.
yeah, because so the output that it does, it's based on the folder structure. So basically, it can see that I've developed this component, whatever chat
Yes.
component,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
specific component has like a text thing that summarizes the component.
Exactly.
Because I feel like there's like an automated cursor rules that is continuously updating opportunity here, because I would love, instead of cursor, because I don't, because there's the new thing where cursor automatically searches and grabs and all does all of that.
Hmm.
But I feel like it's so much easier to just put these in rules, cursor rules.
It could
And
be for sure. I mean, yeah, I need to see how that would work.
because that
But
gives
yeah.
cursor like kind of context for the entire project, and it doesn't need to guess anymore.
Well, exactly. So one of the things that one of the people I've been speaking to, and he wrote it really nicely, actually, and I'll read what he said. He
Mhm.
wrote, the goal is to automate the knowledge transfer to new hires, partners, and customers without burdening our senior teams. That was what he said. And that's where he found this tool. The interesting thing is he has multiple repos. So for example, he has a back end and a front end one, and how do they communicate together? So really, instead of being in Cursor, where maybe that's quite difficult to actually navigate, you could just compress both of the code bases, or the front end and the back end, upload them here, and then you could easily communicate how they kind of work together. I mean, Brian Chetsky, the other day, I was reading an article. He did an implementation, well, they were refactoring a lot of their code, and it was meant to be like a 6 month project, but using AI, they managed to do it in like 5 weeks, just under 5 weeks. So, for example, you could just give this like massive repo to Claude and kind of say, how could I implement this, or how could I combine these two features, or what are the parallels between this repo and this repo? And that would be very time consuming to manually upload all the files, but really you could just upload these 2 files, and it would just be able to, you'd have a great conversation with it with great context, and actually you could make a plan that made sense. So yeah, like I said, it's like I try to give 80% of the knowledge of your code base with only like 20% of the context, like inside of an AI. So yeah, like that's what I focus
Yeah,
on, and then that
it's
extra last 20% is those txt files, those extra ones that I include if you need to go deeper on something specific.
yeah, because now with 4.1, with the million token context,
Yeah,
4.1 is great, by the way. If
it's
you haven't
insane.
used it yet, it's insane. It's
Yeah,
way
yeah,
better than Cloud like 3.7.
yeah.
It almost doesn't make a mistake. It's crazy.
Yeah, that
Um,
is mad.
but I would like, for example, my situation, like the biggest piece of feedback I'm getting is I need to I need notes offline, right? And I
Yeah,
kind of have an idea on how to implement service workers and how to do index DB and all of that. But I have so many variables in different components that I need to sync up, that I feel like just compressing this and putting it in cursor and being able to say, okay, how do I implement, like you're saying, how do I implement
yeah.
this new feature? It's going to navigate it better using a single source of truth rather than relying on whatever cursor's
Find it.
algorithm
Yeah,
of searching through my code base.
exactly. So I mean, Cursor's great. I use it all the time. I use it every day, and it's fantastic when I'm building something. But again, sometimes I don't need to build something. I need to discuss it and think about how I could actually implement this. I don't need to build it right now. I'm
Yeah.
discussing it, and maybe there's different avenues. I don't want to take up my cursor space in that regard. So I usually prefer to jump into Claude or ChatGPT. It doesn't really
But
make a
I'm saying
difference.
that's
Yeah,
a bias that you have,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because you're biased to how you use it. And I'm telling you, as a person who uses cursor, maybe I'm pretty sure I use it differently than you, right?
probably.
Like I
Yeah,
don't use the agent. I just use chat,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I use my own API keys. So I don't like going to a different platform. Uh,
yeah,
you know, I might no, I am definitely one of a target customer, maybe not the biggest one. Uh,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
but for me, being able to, because this all lives in my mind, right? My project, since I built it, lives in my mind. I know where all the components are. I know where all the stuff is. But externalizing it in an easy way is so valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that's really one of the main reasons I actually thought of the idea and how it came about was when I was in, like for the company I actually work for, we were writing some new landing pages for our, like a feature we were working on. And
Mhm.
marketing just so wildly misinterpreted actually what the features do. And I was like, and then they always jump on a scene with a senior dev and they're like, oh, can you explain how this works? And I can just tell they're frustrated because they don't really want to work with it. They're just like, let me do my job, let me build this stuff. And really, AI could just answer all the questions that they had. And that's kind of an evolution of what I had originally started on. I was like, well, this is great for developers, but there's actually a really cool kind of, I think, a bit more niche area. I think people are down like making repo like compressible. That's fine, but I think being able to take that and get that out of a developer's head and being able to share that knowledge or that knowledge transfer between teams is really important. And I think that's, yeah, it's kind of where I'm sort of aiming towards is like, how can we bring all that knowledge that's like compartmentalized in a senior dev's head essentially, and how can we enable like the rest of the team to benefit from that? So yeah,
I love that use case, but there are more use cases for this because I was talking to my friends, and they do the postel. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know if you saw the episodes, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I know the
and I
guy.
told them about you. I'm like, because they're trying to do like viral social media posts,
Mm,
and their future is, you put in a video, it generates the post. You put in an image, it generates a post. You speak to the thing, it generates a post or series of posts or ideas or
yeah,
whatever. And I told them you can also put in the code and generate a post.
yeah,
So
exactly.
is there like an API situation here? Play?
I've not thought about it. No, so the answer to that is no, not yet.
Yeah.
There definitely could be, but literally that's why. So let's say that for that use case, someone they want to make a post based on something they've written in code. That's
Mhm.
literally why you could just download it, bang, and
Mhm.
you're in, and you can just upload those files and just write the post. Like it can easily write a blog article. Obviously, you probably want to include some other things, maybe a tone of voice, stuff like that. So you can include those files as well, or maybe you just include it in the prompt. It doesn't really matter. But
And can I save
absolutely. I mean, when I,
sorry to cut you off, but like I'm
oh,
just
sorry.
thinking out loud. Uh, can I save two iterations and it'll find
Yeah.
the change log, like the diff?
So, well, you can see here as all the compressions I've done just within here.
Yeah.
Like, so every time you make a compression, it does save like a new version. So realistically, if you compared them, you could see the difference. But also, if you think about it, the context of what your product is won't change dramatically every time you make a small feature change, because really this context file is looking a bit more like top down. It's looking a bit more horizontally. Obviously, the files inside will change. The folder structure will change every time something gets updated. But the context is your product is your product. So you've kind of built it with the same frameworks and stuff like that. So it won't change wildly different every time in the context file. But yes, you could easily kind of track changes between them,
Yeah,
and
like
see
big
kind of,
big
yeah, yeah, for
version
sure.
changes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, So yeah, literally you can see how many compressions I've done, and you could, yeah, if you wanted to compare them and see kind of basically the evolution of your product. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, what I was going to say is on the blog articles, I mean, I literally wrote all the documentations for on my website. So for the CLI command, how like all of that works, I literally just uploaded the files and it just said, write me the documentation for these pages. And it just did it all perfectly. It tells you exactly how to run the command, how to like install it, how to authenticate it, everything. It's just, it knows everything from that like kind of aspect. So I didn't have to write anything, and then I would just go in, tidy some things up, you know, make my images, stuff like that. But yeah, it gets me like very quickly to where I need to be, so I can start working on it, refining it, and yeah, that's one of the use
Yeah, I love
cases
it.
for sure.
I love it. And what's the pricing on it again?
Well, it's £15 a month.
Okay.
So basically, and then I have a free, not a free tier. I have two, which are just like one-off purchases, and basically with that, you don't get the Chrome extension or the CLI command. You can just log into here and manually do it. So that's just like a one-off purchase if you want to just do this instead. But to get access to the CLI command and the Chrome extension, yeah, it's £15 a month.
And what's the one-off one?
It's 60 or 75 one off.
And you just can come in and put it in unlimited times?
Yeah, so for 60 you get 10 compressions, for 75 you get unlimited. Yeah.
That seems like a deal and a half.
I think so, for sure. I mean, the amount of time it saves just re-explaining it every time, or like let's say I want to have someone else, like you said, you want to have that knowledge transfer. Let's say you hire a new dev, like you've got to get all that information out of your head. That means you're going to have to sit with them for a long time. You're going to have to show them, which you probably still would want to do anyway. It's just when they're unsure or when they're kind of really getting into it, they can just come in here, ask the questions, they've got the context, and basically get up to speed instantly. It could be like, describe this to me as I'm a beginner, and it would just literally say, okay, here it is, bang, 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 bang. So it just takes that off your plate as well, which is helpful.
Amazing. And yeah. And what's the future for this? Like, what are your thoughts on
So
where the puck is
it's
going?
interesting. So I really want to, basically there's a few things. So one, I want to talk to customers, really understand, like you said, find the 9 people that really want to kind of help this. I think I'm already on my way there with 2 or 3 people, and I'm kind of starting to see what they are interested in. And it really is that knowledge transfer to basically free up their senior devs is kind of one of the things I'm seeing a lot of. So my
That is one
goal
thing,
really
because the
is,
knowledge
yeah,
transfer, like I told you, there's so many use cases for just knowledge transfer. If you just
yeah,
forget everything else
exactly.
and you're like, hey, code knowledge, who can use code knowledge? Software can use, blah, blah, blah. So many people can use the
Sure.
knowledge of the entire project, right?
Exactly. Basically, the 2 things I'm looking at now are, how do I enable it so teams actually have the ability to use this? Right now, I still need a developer to basically compress the code base first time, and then they can share it with marketing, sales. It doesn't make a difference. So how can I make that easier? Because basically, I still have to sell to developers, even though the use case is a bit wider.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at 2 options. Can I just make a Slack integration where I could just say at Code2AI, how does this work? And then they would just dynamically basically pull up the correct files and basically enable that AI chat directly inside Slack or in Teams. I think that's something quite interesting there. And then the other version is like, actually, do I basically make like a Claude wrapper or a ChatGPT wrapper where I can actually upload my files once, almost like a Claude project, and basically everybody can come in and then you start working with it. My problem with that is then I'm making people have to use a new tool and stuff like this. So I'm kind of trying to stay away from that, even though it would enable me the most, because then really I could do some cool stuff like dynamically pull in the right files at the right time based on your context or what you're asking for. So nobody would have to select or pick files anymore. And you could even have like a live sync with your product then. So every time an update is made, your knowledge basically updates itself, which would be sick. But I think that's kind of a big beast, and I don't want to tackle that unless I get really good signals. And then the other thing, which I'm finding interesting, is this is very interesting to people with very big code bases. And at that scale, context is a massive thing. So that article I showed you, I'm thinking about how could I actually now say, okay, I've got this code base. How can I take it down even more? How can I even compress it even further? And I think that Lawrence guy had some very interesting kind of techniques on how they do it. They do it for a very specific use case. I mean, they have incident management and they're basically trying to decipher a lot of things. So I think there's some learnings there to be had. So basically, I'd say the two things I'm going to work on next is compressing it even further, basically, so the context is even smaller. And then how do I enable it much easier for other teams to access it, basically, without a developer having to be the bottleneck for this. I would say those are kind of my two front runners at the minute, and obviously marketing, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's
Yeah, but
where the future holds.
in terms of demo, uh, it was a little all over the place. Just as a critique,
Mm-hmm,
I would recommend you do the from scratch to cloud projects or chat
mm-hmm,
GPT projects and ask them what do you use. Whoever you're showing to be like, hey, do you use chat GPT or do you use cloud? Oh, well, I use
mm-hmm.
chat GPT. Then show them the flow from zero to chat GPT project and how
Yeah,
they can invite people. If they use cloud, same thing. Show them how they can invite people. That's but other than that, great. And then I would also maybe predict the use cases, what the like if it's
yeah,
marketing, it's features, hey, what are all the features is what you want to show them. If it's documentation, you want to show them the documentation use case. So contextually,
mm,
what their use case is, show them that. That's the demo out of the way. In terms of the product, I think the pricing is ridiculous. $75 for unlimited sounds like you shouldn't have that for a long time. Maybe right now to get
yeah, yeah.
people using it. But if you're just gonna get people using it, I would just have it free for now,
Mm.
one time
Well, that is one I'm looking at. Is like
or
the one
5 times or
time.
something,
Yeah, like
just to get
yeah,
people
just like
using
you
it.
can run exactly. And that is something I am looking into doing. That's that like lifetime pricing, like you said, probably won't stay forever. I actually think when these kind of Slack integrations or whatever the next iteration will be, I think there'll be like a larger monthly package, and then I will remove those. So then it'll be like the cheap £15 a month one for these things I've shown. But then yeah, you can go one next level, and it's kind of yeah for teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would have a free
But
one,
let's see.
like one compression
Yeah,
and don't do email password, do whatever Google
yeah, yeah,
authentication or something like that. Um, in terms of just to get people using it. But I'm interested in the continuously synced one.
yeah,
But in terms of strategy, let's get on a proper strategy call and do like founder juice
yeah.
together,
Nice.
just to kind of explore this because I think there's a lot to explore there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it is one that I had originally kind of leaned into already. I've done some tests and like I've actually made some things where you can just basically connect to a repo in GitHub. It doesn't matter, or you can upload one, and then
Mhm.
you just have a chat interface, and you can just keep constantly chatting, which is very powerful. The only problem is then my theory is that you've got to bring people to a new tool and all this kind of stuff, which has probably a bigger
Just like the
kind of
the the chat
yeah.
integration, basically making it the agent that knows your code base and you can chat with it, and then you can put it in Slack, you can put it in Discord, you can put it in whatever chat interface, WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm. It
Uh,
does, yeah.
have
Teams,
it like
everything.
as a chat
Yeah.
thing. Even if you can maybe host it on what's the thing, the SMS thing, to kind of make it so that
WhatsApp.
uh, yeah,
Oh
WhatsApp.
no,
But if you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have WhatsApp, you
yeah,
can. I'm saying you can
yeah,
do
yeah.
what's the name of the
Telegram.
Telegram? All of them, basically,
Yeah,
all of the
yeah,
chats, and it can be the chat, or you can just I don't know. Yeah, OpenAI and Cloud both should have like a live data thing integration.
yeah. I mean, they should. But that's the thing is like, so I kind of think about it as like a memory layer almost. I think about like we are building like a memory layer of your product that different things can access at different times, depending on what your use case is. It could be a founder who's making a presentation and they need to answer some questions about whatever. It could be your new hire who just wants to get to speed faster. It could be customer success dealing with a request. They don't need to go to senior devs anymore. And then it can actually be developers who are going to be like, okay, I'm being asked to build this from a ticket. How could I go on further? How could I write documentation based on what I've just built? That kind of thing. It's just, yeah, basically building this layer of memory around your product. That's kind of,
I
yeah.
think you're focusing on the right thing. I think you being obsessed with context size and accuracy and this kind of like the scientific part of it will give you an edge. The interface part is kind of this adventure mystery that
Mm,
we should solve at some point together. You're gonna solve it. I'm just, helping
yeah,
facilitate,
yeah, no, for sure.
thoughts. But I'm interested. I'm super curious, and I think there's something there, uh, especially at some point the accuracy
Mm,
and context compression. That relationship right now is just a promise.
hmm
It's not like a rigorous comparison because this is where all these things are going. Like Cursor is going in that direction. All of these other places are going in that direction, and you need some sort of scientific way of proving that your shit is the most accurate compression.
Yeah,
Like that would be your key differentiator because that algorithm is going to be pretty. Like you might get acquired just for that.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of promise in the promising things around this. Like you said, a lot of tools need this compression, especially when you get to scale, especially when you're talking about old code bases that maybe aren't ready to be really picked up by Cursor. Some of like massive projects just would die inside Cursor, but this is kind of like a nice stepping stone. And I don't see this as a direct competitor to something like Cursor. I actually see this as something that can enable it to do more, or it's actually like complementary to helping other like development teams to kind of take it to the next level. It's not to replace Cursor. But like it works really well. For example, if you use VS Code still, like you can literally just upload your code base, you can talk on one side and you can just code on the other side. Like it doesn't have to be that like agent chat that you have in Cursor. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting things to happen. I think just got to see what sticks.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a competitor to Cursor. I'm just saying that they're also in the same space of
Yeah, yeah,
figuring out
for sure.
context compression.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I would not be surprised if this gets some sort of traction. One of these teams coming and saying, "Hey, we'll like an hire, like, hey, we want the
Hmm.
secret sauce. Stop what you're doing. How
That'd
much
be
money
nice.
will it take?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that'd be
uh,
sick.
but I think it's you're in the right channel, and you should definitely keep nerding out on the on the
That's
on
the
the
plan.
context
That is
stuff.
definitely the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane what it helps with. Like, I mean, I was quickly over the weekend I was talking about emails earlier, and you can go to Clay, for example, you can get 100 free emails. That's
Mm,
fantastic. But how do I talk to all these people? So I literally just upload the context, I do my research, and it finds unique ways for me to discuss things with them based on my product, my real
mm.
product. Like, I don't have to describe it every time. So I just find myself kind of using these files more and more as I kind of need to do more with my business. And that's kind of really nice to see. It's like I haven't just stopped using it now that I've launched it. It's actually helping me go to the next step and whatever I need to do where with my product, I can just upload these two files and it just gives it that much more context and it just basically grounds whatever AI is giving me back in reality. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for me, imagining the perfect use case for my situation is to periodically compress and
Mm,
have like a folder in my repo called compressions with dates, and then I can just reference it in context while I'm chatting in Cursor to kind of so that it just has this idea and it's in context. I don't know how they do context manager, but I'm thinking
Yeah.
that it'll be a no-brainer. It will just give it more context.
For sure. I mean, it would like I don't know how you start your chats, but I always like to ask, like, go through my project, understand everything I've done, and then just so you can kind of ground it again. And that's exactly what's very like this is super useful for. It's just instantly it can read that file. So yeah,
Yeah,
and that's how it
I
works with
don't
the
do that
compressions.
at all. Like for me, the way I use it is kind of like an intern, a smart intern
Mm.
who I need to check all of the shit after it. Like, and, like, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
I want to add this feature. Show me how to do it. And then it does all the thing,
yep,
and then I gotta read through and be like, okay, this sucks. No.
yeah. I mean, that's not far from what I do as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
It's But I mean, for sure. I mean, I also like to have those conversations. Like I showed you, it's like I found an interesting blog, but that kind of relates to how I'm working. Can I just have a discussion about it? And it just, yeah, it can have a great discussion. It's
Yeah,
insane what we can do. So
yeah,
yeah.
the discussion stuff is definitely, like, yeah. I'm just thinking a little bit because it's pretty. I'm very intrigued. Like that's just like the use case I told you about compressing and just having snapshots
Hmm.
compressions, and bringing it in because I do the I want to build this on top of this feature, whatever. But then a totally new feature that needs to synchronize with all the stuff. I feel like this is where this can come in handy a lot
Yeah,
without the
absolutely.
headache of like trying to organize everything.
Well, and also to make sure it doesn't, let's say, mess up any routes or it doesn't actually kind of break something else by accident. If you can give it this kind of rigid structure, it's the performance is so much better.
Hell yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
If people are using agentic stuff, because I don't use the agentic stuff at all, but yeah,
yeah, okay,
I can see how if you're doing do it for me, this would reduce errors for sure.
yeah, interesting times.
Exciting, very exciting times.